Bem-vindos a Inteligências Lúdicas. Meu nome é Rodrigo Manique e estou aqui com meu brother Lepê Salgado.
E aí, galera?
E hoje temos um vídeo muito especial, que estamos ao nosso querido Konieczka, não é verdade?
Pô, é o nice guy do board game.
Pô, foi muito especial novamente. E nós podemos conversar com ele bastante, né? A gente foi... Pô, ele estava disposto a ficar conversando, né?
Pois é. A gente é que teve que conter a coisa para não ficar muito cansativo também, né?
Sim.
Mas a gente sempre conversa um pouco antes, a gente continua conversando um pouco depois. Mas das pessoas que a gente entrevistou, eu acho que, assim como os jogos dele, ele está no nosso top da lista das pessoas mais gente boa que a gente já conversou.
Verdade. E assim, como nós fizemos a entrevista? Nós conversamos Unexpected Games, né? Que ele já tem vídeo no canal, se vocês não viram ainda, tem bate-papo que nós lançamos já há mais de um ano com o Konieczka, falando sobre a carreira dele, né? Desde os early days de design, até criar a nova empresa dele, e ele já tinha dado uma ideia do que era o... Né? Depois... E hoje vamos falar dos jogos mesmo, né? Nós lá atrás, há mais de um ano, tivemos a primeira assim, o que é o jogo, né? A Iniciativa. E hoje vamos ter os dois, né? Antes de mais nada, vamos dar uma olhadinha aqui. Quem está aqui? Temos aqui, bem-vindo, Júlio Delgado. Genial, obrigado. Temos aqui nosso querido amigo Adolfo Pentanha Silvestre. Começa. Está começando, estamos muito empolgados. E como não poderia faltar, Xandão. Muito obrigado pelo apoio, por estar aqui conosco nesse momento importante. E se você ainda não for inscrito, se inscreva, deixe seu joinha para fortalecer o canal. Esses vídeos legendados e traduzidos custam muito tempo, demora bastante para fazer. Esse especificamente eu demorei menos de um dia, né, Lepe? E assim, como foi? Como foi fazer a entrevista falando sobre os jogos?
A gente se preparou, né? A gente não teve acesso aos jogos, porque os jogos ainda não foram lançados no Brasil. Eu nem estou no Brasil, então, mesmo que eles fossem lançados no Brasil, eu não ia conseguir. Mas a gente fez o nosso dever de casa, conversou com ele a respeito, a gente já tinha tido uma palhinha dele de como eram os jogos. E aí a gente perguntou para ele o que a gente gosta de perguntar, né? Sobre o processo, sobre os jogos, sobre cada um dos jogos e tal. E foi muito elucidativo e ele é uma pessoa muito agradável de se conversar.
Verdade. E é isso. Nós já tinha lido o manual anteriormente do jogo, do outro também. Assistimos vários reviews e gameplays lá de fora para entender como é que era o jogo. Já era uma coisa muito interessante. E, bom, sem mais delongas, vamos começar. Vamos dar uma olhadinha como é que está o áudio. Galera, se vocês... Tá ok? Se eu tiver algum problema no áudio, vocês avisam, tá bom? Avisem, por favor. E vamos ao vídeo. Bem-vindos a Inteligências Lúdicas. Meu nome é Rodrigo Manique. Estou aqui com Lepê Salgado.
Você olhou para o lado errado. Olá, pessoal. Estamos aqui num dia especial. Diz aí por que, Manique.
Because today we have our special guest, Mr. Konieczka. Welcome.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you again.
It's a wonderful day again. I couldn't sleep. I almost couldn't sleep thinking of the moment again. Corey is a creator of many games, incredible games such as Star Wars Rebellion, Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, Orla Exterior, Wolverine, Forbidden Stars, o fabuloso, the amazing Space of Death Angel card game, Gears of War, Rune Age, Rune Wars, among many others. And he's with us to talk about the upcoming games to Brazil, and now they've been released in the United States as well. Thank you for joining us again.
Absolutely. I'm glad our new games are finally coming to you.
Yes.
Corey is naming any top 10 lists. He'll
Yes.
place at least 4 games in a top 10 list. Don't matter the subject of the list.
Exactly.
He'll place at least 4 games in a top 10 list, no matter the theme of the game.
Exactly. I remember first time we had the pleasure to hear from your early as a designer, right, when we started and so on. And we talked a little bit about the initiative that is in our channel. But now we are going to deeper, and to know more about the unexpected games. So, Corey, unexpected games, after so many games created, how is it to have your own company and develop your own games?
It's great. It's a new challenge. It was part of the reason why I wanted to do this. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to try something new and learn some new skills. But right now I'm the only employee of Unexpected Games, and so it's a lot of work. But I do have the freedom to experiment and do unique things and try to make games that are unexpected, games that our goal is to not make something that is going to replace a game that you already have. So, I mean, I've made so many dungeon crawl games, so many war games. I just feel like I've said all that I can say about those. I don't have any fresh perspectives, but I do have lots of other ideas for different sorts of games that maybe people haven't experienced before, and hopefully games that just don't exist that you never knew you wanted.
Hence the name. The name of the company is brilliant.
Yeah, it took some effort to come up with the right name and the logo and all that stuff, and I don't know. Now we just need to live up to that promise.
And the initiative, every game you make is unique. How is it to develop this story puzzle game among so many other games that have been released year by year, and yet bringing against another great experience, which is a good definition of your games?
Yeah, with the initiative, there are lots of puzzle games out there. There's escape room type games that people play. But I felt like there was an opportunity to make a game that had puzzle elements, that had some deduction and some problem solving, but at the same time had strategy involved. There had to be ways for players to work together to not just test their wits. I think my biggest complaint about a lot of puzzle games is that you stare at the puzzle and you either know it or you don't. And you either feel really smart or you feel really dumb. And so I tried to solve that a little bit with the initiative, in that it's a game where there's a puzzle that you're trying to solve each game. And as the game progresses, the puzzles get more and more challenging. But if you maybe aren't as good at solving puzzles, or you just aren't sure where to start, you can spend more time to collect more clues. And so there's this constant time pressure of, do we have enough time to collect more clues, or should we try to solve it now? And it starts out easy. So the first couple of scenarios are just teaching you the basics of the game, but then it ramps up in difficulty and it teaches you more complex things as you kind of go through it. And I felt like that was the type of puzzle game that I enjoy, the kind where anybody can solve it if given enough time, and it doesn't feel like, I don't know, you have to ask for a hint, or you feel like you need to cheat somehow. That always felt bad to me in those sorts of games. So that's kind of the main mechanic of it. But on top of that, I had the other layers of the game. I always describe it as a 3-layer game. There's the gameplay, but then there's the story, and the story is that it's about some teenagers in the 1990s who buy a board game at a yard sale. They start playing it, and they soon realize that this game, there's more to this game than it seems. And the story itself is told through a comic book that's included in the game. So before each game, you read a page of the comic. It shows you what the kids are up to, and then you play the game as them. So that to me felt unique as well. there are lots of games that have story, that like games like Arkham Horror, where you read flavor text and it tells you what's happening to your characters. But I wanted a game that was light on the amount of text that you need to read, and instead is much more visual and much more kind of, let's show you what happens.
It's a little Jumanji flavor in the concept. The kids
Yes.
are playing the key; they are not playing the initiative.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's the game within the game, and
Yeah.
that was sometimes hard to describe to people. They're like, so what is this game? Even the title of the game is called The Initiative, and there's something scribbled out under there. I don't remember how it's translated in Portuguese, but it's similar. Part of it is scratched out, and one of the mysteries is you can solve what's scratched out there if you want. But it's very much, inspired by things like Jumanji, where there's a game within a game, but we wanted it to feel like there was a mystery with it. We wanted the game that they bought at the yard sale that you're playing to feel like something from the 90s, but modernized a little bit. And we also wanted it to feel like a game that somebody else had owned before you. And so, for example, in the rule book, there's some notes written in the margin by the previous owner of the game who just scribbled some stuff on there with a pen. And you're like, what does this mean? Is this relevant to the game or not? And so that's where the third layer of the game comes in, and that's the mystery surrounding it. And so there's a campaign that you're playing. Some people might call it legacy elements, but you don't destroy any components. But there are cards that you get that progress through the story, that unlock new content, new things based upon where the story goes and what you've solved and whatnot.
When we didn't have the opportunity to play it yet, we are waiting for the Brazilian copy, but we seen some reviews, and the emotion that the game passed to me was the same feeling that I have when I read the Hobbit for the first time, and I tried to solve what was written in the map, trying to together which each room represented, to translate the writings of Bilbo in the map. That was the feeling that I got from the game when I saw the description, the things written on the manual, this kind of stuff. I really connected to that feeling.
Awesome. Yeah, there's lots of stuff buried in there, and some of it's optional, some of it you need to solve to continue, but we made sure that there's never a point where you're prevented from playing the game. So if you get stuck on some crucial thing that you need to solve, it will help you get past that point, because we don't know how experienced you are in solving puzzles. Not everybody has translated Tolkien's dwarvish runes into readable text.
Yeah. Exactly. And now let's talk about Voices in My Head, another cinematic experience. We can relate to movies, to the players will have a chance to get inside the guy's mind. Rodrigo, for him, the guy is another YouTuber, a famous Canadian YouTuber. He look at the guy, he sees this YouTuber, and you have to control his emotions. There is an element of area control, but with a little bit of dexterity, and there is the social part that the prosecutor have to feel, to gauge who wants who, so he can help this guy to fulfill his goal. Where the idea came from, and how was to marry mechanics and theme to do this fabulous game?
Yes, with Voices in My Head, it very much started as an idea of the story first. I had no idea how the game worked, but it was inspired by movies like Inside Out, where everybody has different voices. You've got your voices of conscience that are telling you to do the right thing, and the one on the other shoulder that's telling you to do the wrong thing. And how do you make those sort of decisions? And I've always been very kind of fascinated with psychology and about how just everybody's going through their own perspective, their own story. You have your own internal dialogue, and imagining throwing somebody into a very stressful situation, something like being on trial for robbing a bank, and how are they going to react to that? And instead of having it be a normal trial, instead most of it takes place in his head, and how you can control the different parts of his mind to try to get him to act different ways in a trial. If you know that he's taking the stand and he's going to be asked questions by the prosecutor, you're probably going to want to try to take over the speech center of his brain so that you get to decide what he says. But maybe another player is trying to be honest and they want to take over the speech center. And so there's kind of this fight for the different actions that are going to be happening each round. And honestly, I think the heart of the game is it's probably the most humorous game that I've worked on. It doesn't take itself super seriously, because it can get kind of dark if you think of someone being on trial for a crime. Like, if you take that too seriously, I don't know, it can get pretty grim. But in this case, like, all sorts of wacky stuff can happen. We really leaned into that. We have, I was playtesting with a friend of mine who's actually a lawyer, and this was early in development, and we're playing it. He's like, that could never happen. They would throw that case out. No way that they're allowed the lawyer to do this, to do that. And at the end of the game, I was taking all these notes. And I said, so do you think we should change these things? He goes, no, that's the fun. That's the best part. And the point is that every country is going to have its own legal system, right? I'm not going to be able to match the laws of whatever country you're living in, wherever you're playing it. And so it's a fictional take on a story where we really lean into, like, well, what's the craziest thing that could happen? And if you really just go into the game looking for a fun experience and a story that you'll remember, I think you're going to have a blast.
Oh, yeah, I see. Wow. It's a struggle inside the main character's mind. It's something that it called my attention the very same moment that you released the first glimpse of the, and I was looking to hear more. And thank you for bringing another great experience that people will have here. A blast.
Yeah, the board is interesting. The way the game is set. Guys in the center, guy in the center of the board with the areas of control that you have to flick. It's very well thought, very well designed.
Just to kind of illustrate, it's there's a brain that's a raised platform, and all of these clear areas on which you're placing tokens to try to control his mind. And it took us a long time to figure out the best way to create that in a way that everything stays where it needs to stay. It looks nice on the table, and the production team really nailed it. Everything works.
Yeah. And both of your games are focused not only for gamers but also for newcomers and gateway games, right? And that's awesome. That's awesome too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want hobby gamers to be able to enjoy it, but I want them to be able to play with people that aren't necessarily hobby gamers. So I can play with my wife and my daughter, and they'll play the Initiative. They'll play Voices in My Head, even 3,000 Scoundrels. They do have some rules to learn, and so you probably need one person who's a hobby gamer to read the rule book and learn how to play, or watch a tutorial video or something. But beyond that, I really want unexpected games to be games that you can play with anybody. I want them to be games where you can sit down and you can have a good time without having to necessarily been doing this for years and years and years.
I thought Initiative is a great game to introduce children to the hobby. The history is involving, the characters are teenagers, so they can relate to. So I think it's a brilliant way to introduce children to the hobby.
Yeah, and with the initiative specifically, we wanted it to be welcoming to families, and so there's no mature content or excessive violence or anything. I tried to steer away from just wanted to make it a family-friendly experience. I mean, coming from working on a lot of other IPs, a lot of other games, I mean, stuff like Arkham Horror, sometimes like, well, I can't really play that with the family. There can be some maybe really frightening or disgusting things that don't work, but this allowed me to kind of explore that new space. And we've seen a lot of success with gamers, but also with families. I know in Spain, in France specifically, they market it very much towards the family audience, and they had a lot of success with that. But I've had people from all walks of life come up to me at Gen Con and say, hey, I had a blast with the initiative and we solved all the puzzles. And sometimes it's family, sometimes it's gamers. We want everyone to be welcome.
Yeah, I think every kind of audience will experience the game in different levels, but it will work with every kind of audience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, and there are kind of advanced challenges in the initiative that after you've beaten the game, you can go and try to crack these other missions and puzzles. And it's really how deep you want to engage with the game. If you're a hardcore gamer, it might start out a little easy for you. You go, this is too easy. But eventually it's going to ramp up and you really have to think and solve it. But if you're a more casual gamer, you can just play through the basic layer of the game and you can have fun and you can still feel smart and like you accomplished something and that you experienced a fun story.
Now we would like to know what the voices in your head are telling you to do now.
Sure. Well, right now, I'm pretty focused on our new game that we just announced, 3,000 Scoundrels. And so that's a game that's going to be coming out this fall. I don't know when it's coming to Brazil exactly, because I know they've got to do the initiative and voices in my head first. But that game, so we just announced it, and so I've been doing a lot of work on the marketing side of things, writing designer journals, building websites. And so I haven't done a whole lot of working on the next big thing. But I do have a few prototypes scattered around that I've been playing and that I'm thinking about. And we will release something new next year. But I think some of the projects I'm working on are so big that they're going to take many years to accomplish. So I think next year might be something small. I think next year we'll probably do something small, and then the year after that we'll do something bigger and more ambitious.
Yeah, and you see things you've made until now. There are small, there are big, huge ones, and there are tiny ones, and all of them we had a blast, all of them. So
Appreciate your support.
We have now two more questions, and they come from two of our friends that usually participate on our channel. And I asked them, what question would you like to ask if you could? And they were, oh my God, okay. So the first one, Rafael Meloni, which is one of our friends, he asked, is there any theme or kind of game you would like to work on, or any designer you would like to co-create a game?
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that question every once in a while. If you asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said Star Wars, right? Like, oh, I'd love to make a Star Wars game at some point. And then it turns out that Fantasy Flight got the Star Wars license, and I got to make, 3 games or 2.5 games with that. So that was fun. I'm also a big Star Trek fan. Like, I watched a lot of Star Trek growing up. Like, I'd love to at some point in my life make a Star Trek game. Who knows if that'll ever happen. There are plenty of books and movies and stuff that I love that I could totally be excited about if the opportunity came my way. But that's off the top of my head, at least.
Zé Fernandes asked, what is the difference between working on a game with lots and lots of components, large boxes, and a game in a smaller size and fewer components? And how was to create Space Hulk card game that is a game based in another game with lots of components, and you made a brilliant game with own cards?
I think the main difference is that the fewer components you have in a game, the fewer mechanics, the better each of those mechanics need to be. And I've actually encountered this issue a lot while I've been working with unexpected games, where I've experimented with some smaller games. And if your game only has one or two mechanics, those mechanics have to be really fun because there's nothing to hide behind. It doesn't matter what the theme is. It doesn't matter what the story is. It's going to come down to, do you feel engaged with the game? If I'm working on a bigger game like Rune Wars, for example, there's so many mechanics and so many components in that game that the game is the combination of all its parts. That's what makes it fun. And so if you have combat and you've got politics and you've got resource management, you don't necessarily want any of those systems to take up a ton of time and to be overly complex, because the game will take forever to play. I mean, Rune Wars already takes a long time to play. And so we tried to come up with very simple systems. It's like, okay, here's the resource system. Here's how you get more units. Here's a quick way of doing it. But there's so much else to engage with in the game. And so I almost feel like a smaller game is less forgiving of your game design. I think you think of any really small game that has performed really well. Think of something like Code Names, right? Very simple idea, very simple rules, but it just works. And it's just the activity that you're doing is fun, and there's nothing else to the game. There's just that one element. And if that element wasn't super fun, it wouldn't be the success that it is.
Corey, we are very pleased for having you here again, and most of all, to have your games with us, with lots of people getting to know your new games, the newest games, and having the opportunity to experience and live the games you wrote, you created with so much passion and love. And would you have a message for the Brazilian gamers that will be receiving your game soon? Galápagos Jogos is bringing to us, and people during the live, people were cheering up. Oh my goodness,
That's awesome. Honestly, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for supporting my games. Thank you for letting me do this for a living. If I wasn't doing this, I'm not sure what I would be doing. And it requires the support of everyone. It requires people being interested in what I'm doing for me to be able to keep making them. So yeah, just thank you.
Thank you once again. Lepe, any last words before we...
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you again. You are one of the most kind, and although you are one of the greatest game designers of our generation, you are always kind, always open to talk. So we really appreciate you giving your time to us and talking to us. We hope to have you here again when you release another game, or just to talk, because you are a very, very kind and a great guy. You are the synthesis of what a great guy means. So thank you very much, Corey.
Well, I appreciate it. That's very flattering.
So, guys, we have here the great Corey Konieczka, the amazing games, new ideas coming to Brazil. Thanks again, and see you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Galera.
Thank you.
Galera, deixa seu like, que os jogos do Corey estão chegando ao Brasil já, tá? Com mais experiências incríveis. Um abraço a todos.
Bye bye.
I'm closing here.
Aí, galera, não saíram, né? Então, como é que vocês estão? E aí, curtiram, cara? Curtiram que... Lepê? Tá sem áudio, Lepê. Tá sem áudio.
É muito legal rever, né? O cara é realmente simpático pra caramba, é um cara super humilde. E a gente já entrevistou muita gente. Se a gente fosse fazer, em vez do top 10 dos melhores jogos, top 10 dos game designers mais simpáticos, eu acho que ele estava lá no top 3 fácil.
Sim, verdade. Foi muito... E aí, assim, nós até conversamos um pouquinho mais, né? Um pouquinho antes e depois. Colocamos mais o principal aqui, que a galera está querendo saber, né? E eu estou realmente esperando, ansioso, esses jogos chegarem ao Brasil. Já deve estar estourando aí. Muito obrigado, Adolfo. Muito obrigado pelo carinho. Sempre fortalecendo o canal. Xandão, muito obrigado, Xandão. Aqui temos aquele calabouço criollo. Bienvenidos. Olha aí, cheers from Venezuela, Corey. Olha aí, que genial, hein? Que bom ter aqui a galera aqui assistindo. O Melô pergunta aqui, ó. Algumas lojas já estão com uma pré-venda. E sim, o Rodrigo Brandão, que sempre está conosco jogando. Bem-vindo. Então é isso. Galera, mais alguma coisa? Mais alguma novidade? Gostaria de falar, Lepe?
Não, você que tinha aí
verdade.
Revelações para fazer.
Então, nós temos essa apresentação que nós gostaríamos de fazer com vocês sobre o Konieczka. E aguardem que hoje mesmo vai ter um outro... Não vai ser um bate-papo. Eu gostaria de fazer um anúncio e um convite para vocês mais tarde, tá bom? Vai ser daqui mais ou menos uns 20 minutos, tá bom? Não será com o Lepe, será comigo e mais uma pessoa que vai estar aqui. E eu espero que vocês curtam. E tem uma pessoa que tem uma mensagem, um recadinho para vocês, tá bom? Lepe, um grande abraço. Galera que está aqui conosco agora, aguardem daqui a uns 20 minutinhos. Eu vou entrar no ar de novo.
Eu vou voltar para a geladeira.
Não vai não, porque já tem outro bate-papo, já 2, aliás, sendo marcados. Um abraço, galera.